This is Carol Ventresca, Executive Director of Employment for Seniors.
And I'm Brett Johnson, a longtime volunteer with Employment for Seniors.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Successful Encore Career, presented by Employment for Seniors, the premier resource linking mature adults with employment opportunities in Central Ohio.
And a big thanks to our podcast sponsors. They include Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging, planning, funding, and developing services that make our communities places where individuals can live with independence and dignity. Nationwide Insurance, Protect What Matters, and InnoSource, a leading provider of call center and customer service jobs, matching qualified professionals with rewarding career opportunities. We want to welcome Jay Lindner to the podcast. Jay, a certified planner, CFP, and graduate of The Ohio State University. He's been with Retirement Strategies since 1993 and is currently president and CEO. In addition to managing client affairs, Jay's additional responsibilities at Retirement Strategies include client development, community outreach, as well as coordination of employee education programs. He also coordinates and implements employer-sponsored health and retirement plans for local businesses. Now, due to Retirement Strategies' mission of giving back to the community through service and education, Jay, along with Jerry Snyder of Retirement Strategies, founded and currently is president of the 501c3 organization called Central Ohio Professional Education Council, or COPEC, where Retirement Strategies serves and donates hundreds of hours of management and expert financial advice each year to the community at no cost to them. In addition to leading COPEC, Jay serves as the president of Future Possibilities. That's a 501c3 kid coach initiative to mentor at-risk youth, as well as president of his neighborhood homeowners association. He's busy. He's married to Sally and his two children named Rachel and Elizabeth. Thank you for being part of the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the chance to be here.
Sure.
Jay, thank you again for coming to see us at Employment for Seniors. EFS and COPEC go back a long way. We've been working together on various projects, and we wanted an opportunity to really talk about the value that COPEC is bringing to the community, how it is it can affect those who are looking for answers to their questions in a variety of topical areas, including employment. So we wanted this opportunity. When you created COPEC, it was an opportunity for local businesses to provide educational information at their own locations in their own buildings. This is a unique opportunity to match local experts with various employers around town who want to be able to provide that educational background and information. And it's for audiences that many of our local experts would never find. So it was a good opportunity to get those groups together. Maybe you can provide us a little bit more on COPEC and the vision you have for that organization?
Yeah, absolutely. And also to put a little shout out there, the third member that also helped support and set this up was Bob Hendricks. I don't know if you guys had worked with him before, but he was also instrumental in making sure that we got this set up properly at the beginning. Really what it came down to is in our industry and many others, we find that there is a huge void when it comes to the community's ability to receive quality education and information that is really void of the typical sales and marketing environment that's out there. And sometimes you can go ahead and find that information while being online, but then the question is, do you trust the website you're looking at? Is it accurate? Has it been updated? And are they really out there for your well-being, or are they there to sell you a product, which is really kind of the problem that comes out of the current environment that we're in. There's a lot of information, but how do you really boil that down into something that is useful? So what we really looked at is how do we go ahead and find people that really are similar to ourselves. Just, kind of a little bit of history. When I was in school, I was very interested in teaching. And that was one of the careers that I really found as being of interest to me. And then I ended up going down the road of finance. And as you become very good at your skill set, you don't lose that desire to teach. Mm-hmm. And so there's lots of people like myself who really enjoy seeing that thought process of people you work with of, I get it, or that's not what I understood. I'm so glad somebody explained that in a different way and put it in a process where they can now take that information and figure out how to go to that next step. And so what we found was there are a lot of people who need help. And then the question is, where do they get that help? And one of the simple answers is through the employer.
Right.
And it's not always an employer, it's a group. It could be a church, it could be an association like yours that already gather together and congregate. And so through that trust of the group, you now can create the trust of an expert speaker who basically washes away all of their sales and marketing and just shares the industry specialty, not their company, but the industry, and give some perspectives that might be helpful to that audience.
You know, Jay, one of the things that we always talk to our clients about is mature job seekers tend to not go and learn things, keep their skills up to date, or go out and meet up with other people and understand new things that are going on. And so COPEC really gives folks an opportunity. And it's not just learning about a company or an employment skill. It's the notion of learning, because employers want people who can learn and are willing to learn. And so you need to practice that. It's a skill you need to continue to practice. So COPEC's a great way for people to learn new ideas and new things that are going on.
I think the rounded skill sets that you're kind of bringing in there is really important. Companies obviously want to do training and development, and then you obviously have your expertise in whatever area you're in. But each employee, they have different needs, whether it's physical wellness, whether it's financial wellness, whether it's emotional health, whether it's, right, so you have EAPs, you got health, you got all these things coming together, which is one of the reasons why about 4 years ago, we actually transitioned the way that we present our programs over to the 5 dimensions of wellness. And it is about really being holistic in the way that somebody can learn and become individually healthier, but their skill set as far as being able to stay up with trends and different things that are going on, whether it's, being better at LinkedIn or knowing what community services are out in the community and who's presenting that and giving that information.
Right. And having those contacts and building your network.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's how you're doing it. So,
right. Over the past 14 years, you've scheduled, nearly 1,200 programs. Can you give us a review of the various types of programs and areas of interest that are included in those programs?
Sure. We do anywhere from 100 to 150 or so programs. Those include webinars and in-person workshops. And many times, a lot of the companies we work with or organizations, they'll actually schedule out maybe 12 months of programming, and then we might do duplicate parallel webinars for people that are not able to be there in person. So there's lots of different ways that you can set that up. And the 5 dimensions that I was mentioning before is financial, physical, emotional, professional, and social. So a lot of our speakers, we try to make sure that they fit into those dimensions, and it's easier for organizations to kind of review those and pick what might be useful for their employees or associates. Also, we do quite a bit on the business side. So if you're an association that has business relationships, we do that, and older adult needs as well. So there's a lot of those types of things. Some of our speakers, Agency on Aging, you mentioned them as a sponsor. They're one of our speakers. They have been for a long time. Same as the Better Business Bureau, a lot of for-profits, a lot of nonprofits. And so the number of programs, I don't know where our number is. I think we have about 150 programs that are available right now.
When you're saying they're available online, is that what you're saying, or in a lot of different formats for the rest of the year? In
general, they're available online for organizations to choose from. And one of the things I do want to make sure that is very clear, a lot of times we get our speakers because our organizations ask for it. They may sit there and say, hey, you know what? We were really interested in having somebody come in and talk about FMLA, for example. One of the companies locally did that. And so we will actually go out and we will find that speaker. We will vet them and have them actually agree to our process. And many of them love to go out and talk about their industry, whatever it is. So a lot of our speakers come because they were asked. And organizations, they don't have time to go find all of this.
Right.
So we can go out and we vet them and we clear the fact that all you have to do is worry about how many programs you want and whatever it might be, and we can actually go do all that for you. So and you can feel confident. And actually, a lot of our organizations are great partners with us because they help us in the quality control as well. If one of our speakers kind of starts crossing the line a little bit, they let us know. It's not that they didn't mean to, or that they meant to cross a line, but everybody has different understandings of where those lines are, and we just have a talk with them. But in general, it's been really, really strong.
And I think that the value of this is it is really pure information. It's not a sales talk. I mean, how many of us get mailings, and we're invited to this restaurant or that restaurant, and so is going to come and talk about this particular topic. And I think those of us who are, pushing retirement, you're probably getting a lot of those. And this is not hard sell. This is not talking about a company. This is talking about the issue.
Yeah, and our speakers, it's fair. You have to speak about your company in the aspect that they have to know why you're an expert.
Right.
They have to know what it is about you that gives them the confidence that your words mean something. But other than that, we kind of have a joke. We say, if you say who you are at the beginning, it's a bio. If you say at the end, it's a sales pitch. You don't need to say it at the end. They already know who you are.
Right.
But a lot of times our speakers, they will use examples of situations that they have been in over their years of, the experience that they've had. But in general, you're absolutely right. It is critical that the way that this relationship has worked for so long is because if you receive an announcement to go to one of those dinners or something like that, I don't think people realize how much money goes into those. It costs a lot of money to set those up. Is it wrong? No, it's just a different way. And so therefore you have a lot of people that go to these and they think it's for their well-being. Well, maybe it is, but it might also be there that they have to sell something to cover the cost for that dinner and whatever it is.
Right.
The nice part about the way that COPEC is set up is all the organizations, they provide the location, they provide the IT technology, they provide the announcements who bring people together. All we're doing is we're coming and talking for an hour and we're leaving. And they love the fact that we're able to do that. Our speakers get to scratch that itch of being a teacher again and sharing the wealth of knowledge in their industry that many times is confused or watered down in the sales process. And so it's really key to keep that very holistic.
You've had speakers there for a long time, haven't you?
For COPEC, we've had speakers quite a while, and we get some turnover too. You get some people that come in that feel that this is a marketing opportunity, and we try really hard to make sure that we vet that out. And as soon as we start getting a feeling that that's not why they're there, but in general, the people that have stuck around for a long time, they just love those 4, 5, 6 times a year that they get asked to come out, and it's sometimes not a bad idea to be that expert in the room. So you get exposure from it, and it's nice that people know that you're open for business, but that's not how the presentation went.
Right.
And everybody that comes should not feel like they were sold a timeshare, if you will.
Right.
And that's key. So, it's been a nice partnership with a lot of companies that we work with around town.
Do you see different audiences in different formats? So you go to an organization or employer's location, that's sort of one audience. COPEC University really brings in a different audience. Are people coming into you from different perspectives, different ages? Are there some folks do you find older adults coming to some types of events and not other types of events? I'm sort of asking you this off the top of my head here.
No, this is a great question. And this is one of the realities of the partnership that we have to have with the organizations and the leadership there to make sure that we are making a proper match.
Right.
One of the examples I had, I did a presentation for Goodwill. I don't know, it was probably 10 years ago. And we have different presentations, and one for financial is for people that are dealing with Social Security and Medicare and things like that. And then there's another program we do that's called 10 Critical Aspects. And this is really more for people that are just trying to get the base understanding and beginning of budgeting and those types of things. And we do those for the nurses around town, for Children's Hospital. We go in 6 times a year and help with their curriculum as far as their new hirees. We go in and we love doing those programs. But when I did this presentation, they picked a program that was designed for seniors. They chose it, and we did not clarify it properly. And I went to do the presentation, and I would say the average age was 28.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So obviously you have to on the spot change things around. The slides don't fit, but you can have a really quality conversation because a lot of times people just want us to come in and have a round table. Let's just talk. So you're able to control those. But in general, knowing the audience, is it a younger, is it older? What are the types of areas in their life and benefits and, whatever they're dealing with, you try to definitely keep it targeted towards what their interests are. And the organization we're coming out to talk to their their group about, they really have a key piece in that conversation, make sure it's targeted.
Right.
As useful as possible.
Well, we, you and I met when I started with Employment for Seniors and the recession had hit and lines of people needing jobs were out the door. COPEC was already in existence, but were there changes that you made during that period of time to help serve our community? We had, Central Ohio is really blessed with a lot of different resources, and I think COPEC played a good part in that.
I don't know if we had to change anything really. It was more that we just did more programs maybe that were tied towards how to sustain a strong picture, whether it's financial, emotional, whatever it is, through that very difficult period. A lot of times we spend our time preparing for good things in life, but then hopefully preparing for those times that are rough. Sure. And many times during the rough patches, you need support, maybe some education and guidance that help you gain a little bit of information that helps make it a little bit smoother. So we definitely spent more time helping people through the process and understanding what your options are. Coming from a financial perspective, a lot of ours was making sure that people didn't make mistakes that financially was,
right.
It really hurt them long term. And many times people make decisions that in the short term it seems reasonable, but they don't realize these penalties or these long term effects and things like that.
Right.
So we spent a lot of time doing those things. But in general, it's just, with a lot of the baby boomers retiring, a lot of companies are focusing on that. But then also we have the younger crowd coming up. So there's a different attention with debt and management, and those types of things. So you will see those, the ebbs and flows of the need depending on what's going on. But obviously during the market correction, there was a lot more need of, hey, look, how do we stabilize, minimize the bleeding and give yourself a best chance of recovery and having that personal touch with those people. It really is it's enjoyable to go through that process and see people recover.
I mean, as many presentations as I was giving in that period of time, people were panicked. I mean, because it wasn't just losing your job. It was the headlines in the paper every day were saying, this company's closing, that company's closing. People are backing off or scaling down or downsizing or whatever they called it, right sizing. So they didn't see any prospects or ability to find another position, and we're in competition with so many people. So yeah, people were making drastic decisions.
Yeah, and COPEC was really helpful in that process because it definitely helps in a lot of the different areas of your life, whether it's some of the experts like you that come out and talk about how to Jewish Family Services, for example, they've done some things, also CTI, and you've got a great community group of organizations that share their skill sets. So as far as getting back on your feet, having that piece in place, but then all the ancillary presentations that are financial, emotional, even, hey, go out and take a walk every day. It cleans your mind. It makes it easier for you to write that resume. And I mean, all of those things that have to come in a holistic basis, COPEC really tries hard to provide those. I'll say one thing regarding that time period. You wish that younger people and all people could somehow experience a tough time in life without having to go through it, right? So that they can, right? I mean, that's why they call it experience. But through that process, they can really understand the keys of having positive cash flow, of having emergency funds, of understanding where your needs and your wants and your wishes are with your own personal financial situation, so that you can control that during those rough patches in life, without losing your home, without getting divorced because of the financial fights, without all of those negative ramifications that come from an unhealthy financial situation. And it's our job to make sure that we help smooth that as much as possible, not only to reach your goals, but to make sure that you don't get disrupted when those bad patches come. We all will lose market value. We will all maybe have a job change and have troubles with health. But how did you weather that? That's key. Those are the difference between successful situations and those that consistently struggle, is how you make it through those periods of time. And your organization here is critical in that piece. And it's a piece of that whole holistic approach, which is why we've worked together for so long.
Right. Well, and as I said, we not only in Central Ohio, we not only have a lot of different agencies that do a lot of different bits and pieces, but we all communicate with each other. And one of the things that the sort of the joke about folks they all want to register for employment for seniors online. Why do I have to come to your office? So the joke is, I have to make sure you're 50 so you could use our services. But in actuality, it's to see what else they need. Who else do they need to be referred to? What other agencies that can help them? My feeling is that you use all the services that are available to you, particularly because most of them are free. And so you use those services until you can meet whatever your goal is. And you can't overuse services. So that's right. Yeah. Good. All right. Well, I think we have one more thing that we wanted to take a look at, and you sort of alluded to this a little bit. Given all of that you have seen in your work with COPEC, there have been, some difference and changes in how we look at career issues and really looking at financial stability for clients. Folks are always amazed when I say, I have clients who are in their 70s and 80s. Some just want to work. They just want to be engaged. They want to have someplace to go a couple of days a week, and they want to be busy, and they want to learn new things and use their skills. And unfortunately, a whole lot of them absolutely have to be working. They have to be doing, bringing in income because their retirement or their Social Security or whatever isn't going to meet it. So, maybe you can provide us with some of the lessons that you've learned and working with folks, and tips and strategies that you'd like to make sure that our listeners hear, not just for Central Ohio, but, in general. How can they utilize resources like COPEC and employment for seniors, and leading them to better financial stability as well as good career path too?
I always think of the football team here in town. Whenever they go through a loss or there's a tough time, what do? They go back to basics. They go back to tackling and blocking and the simple things, and not all the trick stuff, and not all the things where you have a chance where people lose focus of the basic details. And I find that from a financial perspective, regardless of where you're at, having a thorough understanding of what the basics are, and that could be as simple as a positive cash flow and understanding where the leakage is in your expenses. I would say probably 80% of everyone we work with, even as they approach retirement, they don't really know what their expenses are.
Oh, very
true. They think they do,
right?
But they don't. And what I mean by they don't is did you include that car repair that happened once a year? Oh, I forgot about that. Did you include the fact you don't have grandkids now, but you may, and all of a sudden the wallet opens up a little bit again?
Oh, yeah.
The financials in retirement especially do not care how worthy the expense is. it's a numbers game, right? Whether you're tithing, whether you have, well, my car's paid off. Well, you're not going to drive your car for 30 years. You're probably going to have to get in. Oh, that's right. So we need to plug that in. And people always underestimate, and quite honestly, the fact that we use credit so much today, that's fine if you use credit, but if you're using it as a way to pay at the point of purchase versus allowing that debt to accumulate. So if you are using credit, well, you need to make sure that that's part of your budget, not the minimum payment. So therefore, hey, I live off of $5,000 a month, but they didn't realize over here on the side the credit bill has gone up.
Right.
Well, your expenses is not $5,000 a month. It's really $6,000 or $7,000 or whatever it is. And people play tricks on themselves, and they always play the perfect scenario. Well, I will only use, we'll go out to eat once a week or something. They always minimize everything. And in reality, it's always higher. And these old standard rules of thumb that say in retirement, you're going to use 70% of your current I'm telling you,
especially with grandkids.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, it's very few where their expenses go down in retirement. They either stay the same or they go up. And here's the reason why: is because they want to live, they want to enjoy retirement, they want to go travel and things like that. So I really break it down a lot to go into the basics. You got to understand what your expenses are. You cannot underestimate inflation. There's a little rule of thumb out there, or a little rule that's called the rule of 72. If you've never heard of that, and all that basically means is that you divide interest rate and years into 72, and you get an idea of how long it takes for your money to double. So at 3.5%, let's just use that as an inflation rate. That means if you're living on $60,000 a year, in 20 years, it's $120,000. Just as a simple rule. How quick do you think your Social Security is going to grow? It's not going to keep up with inflation. What about that pension that you got that's staying flat? Right? What about those bank CDs that are earning 1 or 2%? Right? There's a lot of things. So people underestimate the impact of properly knowing their expenses, properly knowing the impact of inflation over a long period of time. Cash is king. You have to have an emergency fund. You have to be able to weather those situations. Back to what the life event of losing your job in those types of situations.
Right.
One of the biggest things that people ask is, well, how much should I have in an emergency fund? Okay. Well, if you're 22 and you're just starting, I'd like to know that you have enough in your emergency fund to at least pay that deductible for that car accident or for that health situation, so that you don't put that on a credit card or whatever it might be. Other than maybe the match on a 401k, I tell people don't worry about retirement yet. That's the word out there. Oh, you got to worry about no. By the time you're 30, if you have a great emergency fund and you have these things under control, then you can worry about 40 years from now. But the problem is sometimes people worry about that too soon and they forget to worry about what's right in front of them. So it's really key to do that. But understanding that cash is king, make sure you can manage all these storms. But how much an emergency fund is needed? If you have a spousal situation, this is the process that you guys, I don't know if you do this or not. Okay, if one of you loses your job, what is the expenses that you're living on, and how much variable did that have on those expenses? And what is the job that you have? What's the likelihood you're going to lose it? And what's the likelihood that you can get another one? And most people, when they're in their 50s, unfortunately, if they lose their job, they're probably not going to be at the same income level that they were.
Right. And it's going to take a lot longer to get a new job than they realize.
Absolutely. So therefore, back to the cash is king rule, you need to make sure that your emergency fund has a much higher dollar amount to withstand the likelihood and those losses during that period. If you've got two people working in a job that they earn $60,000 each and their expenses are $70,000, and they both are in a job where they most likely wouldn't lose their job or it'd be easy to replace it, well, they may not need as much in an emergency fund, as opposed to one person that's a sole breadwinner in an industry that if they lost it, it'd be really hard to find another.
Right.
They better have 2 years worth of living expenses. So that's a key. And then Another thing that we've noticed quite a bit and what we've been applying a lot is the fact that not only is this current generation really dealing with multiple jobs, the idea that you're going to stay at one job for 40 years and retire with a gold watch and go off into the sunset isn't the way it is anymore. People typically are going to have 7 to 8 different jobs in different businesses and things like that. And I'm not.
And maybe even starting at the age of 50, you may.
Absolutely.
Well, I was just going to say, this is going even younger. I mean, the trends now for difficulty in the job market are going down into the 40s. And it's also where individuals are finding out that because of the kind of positions they're looking for, they'll never find it full-time. So they're looking for multiple part-time jobs to work at the same time.
Right. Absolutely. And a lot of businesses are doing independent contracting now too.
Exactly.
So that they don't have to deal with the benefits and things like that as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. But where it applies to financial planning, the financial independence to prepare for retirement, is that not only are a lot of people going to retire early in their mind, but what does that mean? Just because you retire early doesn't mean you're financially independent.
Right.
So therefore, you need to separate those two, and you need to understand how those additional after full working, those other jobs have a major impact on your financial independence. So we have a lot of people where their retirement plan includes that part-time job for another 10 years. Yeah. And that's a critical piece. It's not, hey, I'm retired, the checks come in and I don't work. It's not that case anymore. A lot of people will retire at 58 and they know that they're going to work down at their brother's shop because they enjoy it. First of all, if they're doing a job that maybe they're no longer going through that stress, they enjoy it. They're bringing in some income. So instead of working 3 more years in a very stressful job, they may work 10 years, make a third as much. That's fine. All the numbers work. They don't care how it comes in. They just care that it comes in.
Well, and that really comes back to the podcast, which is called The Successful Encore Career. And that's one of the things that we're finding out with older, mature job seekers. I've done that. I've been an accountant for 35, 40 years, and I am tired of those numbers, but I'm a woodworker. And I really want to spend my time woodworking, and I enjoy it. I'm not going to make anything close, but that I want to do that. So we look at that as a perspective of, are they ready to make that kind of a career decision? Are they going to go into business for themselves? And if so, what are the resources they need? If they're going to look in their change to a different position, being in a different industry with an employer, how do they find those employers? How do they network into those companies? So yeah, it's the same kind of thing. But a lot of them don't do it because they're not sure they can.
Yeah, and let me make one point clear to your listeners that a lot of people need to really heed is just because you're a great chef doesn't mean you're a great business person.
Right.
So for those of you that want to go out and start your own business, please get somebody who will watch the numbers with you and make sure that you're catching the car before it goes off the road. Because a lot of times people will completely devastate their retirement 401k and other things. Because once they get in a hole, it only takes another $10,000 to fix it, and then another $20,000, and then another $50,000, and they don't realize the devastation that they're applying because they think, well, they're self-employed, this is going to be supplemental income. Businesses fail all the time,
right?
And it's not because you're a bad chef; it's because maybe you need help making sure you stay on track with the financial side of it. And so it's critical to apply those two because you could be the best woodworker in the world. But there's a reason why the IRS talks about, did you make money 3 of the last 5 years? Otherwise, it's a hobby. It's not a business.
Right.
And hobbies lose money too. So
right. And again, it goes back to that notion that there are resources in Central Ohio. The people who are looking to do their own business, there are resources to get you started and make sure you're asking all those right questions.
Absolutely. But it's a great way to, if you can make money doing something you love.
Oh, absolutely.
In the first place for your career, what a blessing that is, right?
Right.
But if you had to do a career, like you said, and you're tired of the numbers and you really wanted to go into this other thing, that would be just a wonderful thing to do. We talk a lot of people that work at car factories and they're physically just broken down. And for them to go in for 15, 20 hours a week to their buddy's shop and actually enjoy that process,
there you go.
That's a big deal. So
wonderful.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you have any other words of wisdom for our listeners? I think we've gone through our questions and had a great conversation and focused on all that COPEC is bringing to the community, and we thank you for that.
Right. And glad to hear it's going strong, too.
It's healthy.
Individual and businesses. That's great.
We really enjoyed the opportunity to share all of our speakers' expertise and obviously your partnership for so long. And
great. Yep.
We're always happy to help out any way we can.
Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on our podcast program.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Successful Encore Career Podcast, presented by Employment for Seniors and sponsored by Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging, Nationwide Insurance, and InnoSource. This podcast is available on our website, employseniors.org, as well as Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, or your favorite podcast player. To help us defray the cost of producing the podcast, consider donating to Employment for Seniors. Go to employseniors.org and click on the Donate Now button. Any amount is appreciated, and we'll make sure that we thank you for your support in an upcoming podcast episode.
Employment for Seniors is the premier resource linking mature adults with employment opportunities. If you're 50 years of age or older and living in Central Ohio, we're here to help you find employment. And Central Ohio employers are mature, talented, skilled, and dependable job seekers will provide significant value to your organization. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. If you have a topic or interview idea, let us know. Send us an email at podcast@employseniors.org.
Circle270Media.com